Hey performance golfers, I'm Jeff Ritter. Today I got some simple tips to help you fix that slice once and for good. You know, 90% of golfers are unintentionally slicing their golf ball. That's an astounding number of people that are hitting the same basic shot. So one thing you have to understand is that the only thing that can make a ball slice, assuming a solid hit, would be having your club face open to the swing path or the direction your golf club is traveling at contact. In the first place, I think that's really helpful to start, that a lot of people tend to overlook, is simply understanding how your equipment is designed, and if you use this equipment according to design, how that club face wants to close relative to the swing path. So your golf club has got a few basic design features. The first design feature is the fact that the golf club leans a little bit towards the target. You can see how the grip end is in front of the leading edge right here. So the manufacturer is just telling you, when the club meets the ball, we like to have a little bit of forward lean. The only way you can do that is to have your weight forward and your hands a little bit forward. The second design feature is the fact that this golf club is sitting on an angle away from the target line. And the angle this golf club is built on, well, that's the angle the manufacturer wants you to swing it on. If you swing the club on that angle, what you're going to notice is this club face for a right-handed golfer, it's naturally going to make a nice little left-hand turn through the ball, and there's the face closing to the swing path. If you take this club and you swing it on too much of a straight line, too vertical back and through, the club face tends to behave in the exact opposite fashion. So a lot of you out there are trying to swing on a straight line to try and hit a straight shot. But when you do that, that makes the club face move open to the path, whereas the golf club staying more on the angle it was built, that club face naturally wants to close relative to that swing path. So I think you need to understand how your equipment is designed and then work to build your technique around the design of your equipment. A lot of golfers are absolutely missing that. The second thing I want you to do is understand what kind of game you are playing. And by that I'm referring to online versus offline games. So in general, when I'm looking at a sport or an athletic movement, we can put it into a category of online versus offline. So an online game, right, that might be a game like basketball. So here's my target line. If I turn over here to the camera, in order to be accurate shooting a basketball, you have to move your hand and your arm along that line to create a nice straight shot. If I were playing darts, that's an online movement. If I were playing pool, that would also be an online movement. Well, in golf, baseball, tennis, a sidearm throw, we're not standing on this line, we are standing off of this line. So an offline game requires offline movements and offline attitudes. So instead of trying to swing my club on a straight line, where the face is opening through contact, I'm trying to create more of a curve to my swing, where the club head swings away from the target line of the backswing, back to the target line of contact, and back away again in the follow through. If I'm doing that, now I'm using the club, again on the angle that it was built, and as the club swings around my spine back and around my spine through, that club face naturally wants to create a left-hand turn for the right-handed golfers, and of course the opposite turn for the left-handed golfers. Those are the two elements we need to get that ball bending in the opposite direction.
All right, guys, quick break from today's video. Look, if you want to make massive improvements with your game and actually get way better in 2025, you got to do something different than you've done before. And one of those things that I highly recommend is checking out these 2-day schools that my friends at Performance Golf are hosting. These are with the best coaches in the world, people you see me in videos with all the time, like Martin Chuck, Angie Rice, Erika Lark, and many more of the top coaches at awesome places all around the United States. We're seeing great results with these schools because what we're able to do when we see you in person is really find and fix the main root issue. Most all of us have like 4 or 5 things wrong with our swing. You can't do them all at one time, but you can find and fix the main one thing, which we can do in person like that. We're able to make massive improvements. I'm talking like maybe 2 years of improvements in only 2 days. So if you're looking for something to really fast track your improvement, this could be the thing that could take you to the next level. We'll put a link in the description down below. Check it out, see if there's a spot available in a location that works for you.
So the best way for you to start feeling more of an offline movement or an offline attitude would be simply by elevating your club head above the ground and making some elevated swings. You might call these baseball swings or softball swings. The moment I elevate the club, all I can feel is a pure circle going back and a pure circle going through. My spine, that is my axis of rotation. So think of the golf swing as a stable axis, like a tetherball pole in a playground, and then a circular movement around that axis, right? So that's what we're looking for in the golf swing. So if I'm standing up nice and tall, here's my spine, the axis, and now I'm feeling a pure circle of the club head of my hands and arms around that axis, back and through. All I have to do to hit this ball off the ground is simply take my axis or spine and start leading it forward. So if you can feel this elevated swing around and around, you're going to create the arc that we're looking for. As you also keep the club head elevated, you're going to feel like the club face wants to close really easily. You're going to feel this trail arm crossing over top of that lead arm. And then from there, if we just tilt the axis to the ground, now we're measuring the circle down to the spot that the ball's at. So I get myself set up here, make a few swings up in the air, around and around, an offline game, feeling the club face closing relative to that arc, tilting my spine forward so the circle touches the ground, and there's a soft little draw from right to left. So starting off here, if you can understand how your equipment is designed, you can start building your technique around the equipment. If you understand what kind of game you're playing, offline game versus an online game, if you can make some elevated swings, which I know you've done in the past, feeling that club face closing as opposed to opening, just tilt the axis to the ground, and now you have the starting elements of fixing that slice once and for good. A couple other things here that are really important relative to your setup, right? These would be like the little bonus tips to make sure all this stuff comes together. And the first thing would be having a little grip check. So by and large, all these slicers that show up in my lesson tee, they've got too much of a weak grip. And a weak grip means that your hands are rotated too much towards the target in the address position. So if this right here is a relatively neutral grip, both hands turned a little bit away from the target, a weak grip is both hands moving more towards the target. Well, if I have my hands in a weak position, this club face wants to get open during the swing. And now the face is going to be open to the path, and that's going to cause a slice. If you go ahead and get your lead hand rotated more away from the target, especially if you're slicing, this lead hand, it needs to feel like it's darn near 45 degrees rotated away from the target over top of the shaft. Wrap your fingers around the grip. Make sure the heel pad of your hand is up on top of that grip. If you're slicing, you generally have the thumb too much straight down, and you've got that grip too much in the palm of your hand. So you can see how 45 degrees across the top, that's going to put my thumb a little bit right of center as a right-handed golfer, more towards the side of the grip. And then from here with the heel pad on top, I should feel like I can create a nice little hinge, right, out of my wrist action, right? So get the lead hand on first, give yourself a little tap, tap, tap to make sure that you not only have the right amount of rotation, but you have the right combination of finger and palm. The next thing you're going to do is take this trail hand and approach the grip a little bit more from underneath the shaft. If you have a weak grip, this trail hand is approaching the grip from above, that palm is looking down. We like to have this hand a little bit more rotated away from the target, so a great way to do that is to feel this trail hand just kind of sliding past your right thigh, approaching the grip from more underneath, and now you're going to find that both hands have this look where they're both turned away from the target the exact same amount. So let's think about these terms, weak and strong. Well, if I have a weak grip, like I mentioned, that opens the face. An open face at impact is going to create a glancing blow. An open face is also increasing the loft. So we could say that a weak grip, for most players, not all players, a weak grip can produce a weak hit. As we get a stronger grip, turning our hands more away from the target, now this club face wants to play more square to slightly closed. So now as we meet the ball, that closing face is creating a much more solid strike. Instead of increasing the loft, now we're starting to decrease the loft a little bit. So we could say that a strong grip can produce a strong hit. So some good incentive in terminology if you don't understand those terms weak and strong. The next thing that's really important is making sure that our setup position with our arm posture is going to make it easy to swing this club on a nice plane and meet this ball with a path that's swinging just a little bit from in to out with that closing face. So we're going to talk about the role of this trail arm. And when I see a golfer who's slicing, not only do they have the trail palm on top too much, but they have the trail arm very long and well above the lead arm. What that does is that opens my body with my hips and shoulders more to the left. And the moment I do that, I'm not going to have this nice curve to my swing. This club's going to swing too much on a straight line back. It'll tend to swing to the left of the target coming through. If I've got that weak grip, now I got the face open to the path, and now I got my slice. So off of this new grip, a little bit stronger grip, stronger hit. What I want you to do is take this trail elbow, and I want you to rotate it like you're going to make a bicep curl in the gym. And when you do that, the elbow is going to point inwards towards your belly. The pocket of the elbow is going to look directly away from you. When you put yourself in that bicep curl position, you're going to notice that the elbow has got a bend in it. And with that bent elbow, I can take this trail palm and just rotate it independently back onto the club to form my grip. But now you can see how my trail arm is below my lead arm. And if my trail arm is below my lead arm, it's going to feel really easy to feel a gentle arc of the swing, moving the club a little bit inward and upward over my shoulder. So the trail elbow position relative to the lead arm is making it easy to feel an arc or curve of the swing. And now as I return back to the ball, I get a little bit of that in to out strike. The final thing I want you to do is try and create a little bit of a draw bias in your stance and body position. So realize that everything you're doing in position and movement, it's going to lean you towards one side of the ball flight spectrum. And in general, there's two kinds of golfers. If you're not hitting it relatively straight, it's slicing too much or it's hooking too much. So if you got a slice, it just means you have an overload of slice-biased positions and movements. And if you understand what those are, then we can swap them out or exchange them for a series of draw-biased positions and movements on the opposite side of that position and movement spectrum. So, as I mentioned, slicers have weak grips. This trail arm is too high. They also tend to set up with their body a little bit too open, you know. Sometimes we get open because of the trail hand position, but sometimes golfers are just already rotated too much towards the target. So what I want you to be able to do from this stronger grip with the trail elbow a little bit lower is I simply want you to take your chest and your hips and rotate them a little bit close to the target. So instead of having myself perfectly square, I'm going to be aiming my hips and shoulders a little bit right of my target line. To help me do that, and to also help me better see visually a little bit more of this in to out path, I'm going to take this trail foot, I'm going to kick it back just a little bit. We call this the bowler stance, trail foot back. So if you imagine somebody bowling, we know they have the trail foot behind the lead foot. And bowlers are rolling hooks. They're swinging that arm out towards that right gutter for the righties, to the left gutter for the lefties. And they also have a little bit of rotation out of that trail hand, which is putting a right to left spin on the ball. Again, if we're talking about a right-handed golfer. So if we get set up, grip a little stronger, trail arm a little bit more under, a bowler stance where I'm slightly more closed, chest and hips. If I'm playing an offline game in a circle, and I'm allowing that club face to close naturally relative to the arc, then again, all of those slice biases have been swapped into draw biases. And there we have that ball curving gently to the left. So when you come out to my lesson tee, a lot of times I start my lessons by saying there's no such thing as a good or a bad swing. Now, if we're talking about scoring, that would obviously be highly debatable. But if we're talking about the outcome that you're getting, realize that if you're slicing the ball, you're doing everything perfectly to produce that slice, right? So if you want a different outcome, then you got to do something different. And if you understand where the slice is coming from in position and movement, and we can swap out those slice biases for draw biases in position and movement, within a couple of swings, you're going to see a different outcome. So these are pretty simple tips. These are things that I encounter with students every day on the lesson tee. Put them into your game one at a time. Be a little bit patient with the process, But I guarantee you that if you can get just enough of these draw biases into your game, if you can get your mindset around how the design of your equipment supports hitting a draw, if you understand what kind of game you're playing, an offline game versus an online game, then you have all the tools you need to fix that slice once and for good. So thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, give us a like, leave those comments below. Until next time, best of luck with your game.